So while we're on the subject of things that can go wrong, and I think it's important to say at this stage that
they happen.
We bring issues with us, don't we, to the yoga mat
Totally.
majority of the time from
Totally.
from our daily lives, and that's why a lot of the stuff is happening. It's not that yoga is dangerous per se, or that you can hurt yourself. Quite often you're bringing your shit with you to the mat.
Onto the mat, totally.
But some things may be more easy to relate to yoga, such as SI joint instability or pain, that sort of thing. If people are suffering from SI joint issues, what can they do in their practice to take some stress off it? And maybe let me rewind that and say, what are the postures or the things to look out for that you might be doing that you're going to be throwing stress into the SI joint to start with?
There's 3 places where the most amount of stress goes into the SI joint. Rotations.
Yeah. Because?
Because as the spine goes down, as the spine goes down and rotates, the last joint that it hits, right? You go L1 to L2, L2 to etc. You get L5 to the sacrum, and then the next joint down is the sacroiliac joint.
Mm-hmm.
And then the joint down from that is the hip joint. So in most twists, you've pinned your femur into place, and then you're rotating your spine.
Yeah.
The spine gives, the hip joint gives, the pressure goes inward toward the center joint of that chain, which is the SI joint.
Yeah.
So deep twisting is a very common place to feel SI joint dysfunction, especially if you're coming with it already.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 places are deep forward bends and deep back bends, essentially for the same reason. Once you maximize the range of motion in the hip joint and the lower lumbar spine, the SI is sitting in the middle of those 2 things. So deep back bending puts pressure in the SI joint potentially. Deep forward bending, same thing, just in the opposite direction.
And what can they do in twists to
accommodate it?
Yeah, to accommodate, but also to stop it happening in the first place. The deep twist, I always think of it as like those banders have been forgotten if it's dropping down into the SI joint.
It could be that.
Rotating the thoracic spine.
Yeah. Well, 1, don't go as deep.
Yeah.
2 is if you're blocking movement in your hip joints to accentuate twist in your spine, then allow the hips to move and be a little bit freer. That'll help accommodate the pelvic movement, because if you keep it too rigid, then you're putting more pressure in. Right? If you keep the pelvis fixed and then rotate the spine, it's going to go more in. So let the hips do some of the movement and some of the rotation as well.
And Warrior 1, that's another one that can be a bit dodgy on the SI joint.
Yeah. Usually because people think if they're putting their back heel on the floor that they have to square their hips.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Unless you've got very special open hips.
Yeah.
90% of people can't do that.
Yeah.
But the striving to do that can put a lot of force and pressure into the SI joint.
Yeah.
So you do one of 2 things. If you want to go untraditional, you lift your heel up and then you can square your hips.
Yeah.
2, you let go of the idea of squaring your hips and put minimal amount of effort into doing that. And the third thing is widening your stance, which allows the hip to then come around more on its own.
I've been doing that recently, and it's so comfortable to have that wider stance. So we talk about a wider stance widthways, not lengthways.
Right.
And it just feels really nice.
Yeah, because there's you're not loading the leg with tension in the same way.
Yeah.
Now, somebody could argue the opposite side of that. Well, you're not working the back leg in the same way through the front of it.
Yeah.
So you have to find the balance of the 2. That's the thing.
So if you wanted to play with that wide leg thing, step your hand up behind step your foot up behind your hand rather than into the middle. Or is that too wide?
Something like that. I think most people cross their feet too much in going back through other standing postures as well, relative to how open their hips are.
Yeah.
Right. We live under this rule that the front foot, the heel is supposed to line up with the inner arch of the foot, but that's somebody else's body. That ain't mine.
Yeah.
So you need to be realistic with where you are. Yeah. So any of the, whether it's warrior or let's say we do twisted triangle, which is kind of a similar setup, you should be able to square your hips first. Yeah. And if you can't, then you might have to step wider. Yeah. That's a good rule as well. So you can either do the back foot, or as you said, stepping the front foot and to the hand as opposed to the center line. Yeah.